you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Wednesday, October 16. Hope everyone is doing well. And it is the Sick Podcast, and you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And thank you very much for watching. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. And we'll talk about them right now because they are a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. Also brought to you in part by many other great sponsors, which we'll get to throughout the course of the podcast, of course. But without further ado, let's bring him in, usually a regular on Wednesdays, TSN hockey analyst and director of scouting, Craig Button. How are you?
I'm great, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm really, really good. But as someone who did sports radio earlier today, I have to tell you that there were no shortage of topics to talk about in the National Hockey League. What an incredibly beautiful, emotional night last night in Columbus, where everything was just done to perfection. It was they couldn't have done it better, huh?
It was brilliant, Tony, and whoever was behind it, I mean, to your point, they couldn't have done it better. It touched every single point that you wanted to have in a tribute to Johnny Gaudreau and to his brother Matthew. And certainly, Sean Monahan taking the face off, the empty left wing spot, Bennett with the puck, and then a puck going there, and everything about it just paid tremendous tribute to Johnny Gaudreau. And hearing Paul Maurice talk about it, hearing Dean Evison talk about it. I don't know if you saw Saturday night in Calgary.
I did.
That was another special one where they took all the different special moments and they spotlighted it on the ice where he was. And, again, just it speaks volumes about the magnificence of Johnny Gaudreau and how exciting he was, but also to how he touched people. Because if you don't touch people, you don't get into those creative areas where you want to make a tribute like they did and heartfelt. It was simply something that was beautiful. It was unique. And, certainly, we all celebrate Johnny, like his wife Meredith said, celebrate Johnny, celebrate the game that he loved. And certainly we miss him.
Renaud Lavoie of TVA Sports, who you know very well, of course, joined the guys on BPM Sports Radio earlier this morning and told them that the opening face-off, no one to the left wing, Sean Monahan taking it, passing the puck to Sam Bennett, who left it there at the open spot where Johnny Gaudreau was in spirit, of course. That was Sean Monahan's idea, supposedly.
Like
That's
I
something?
said,
Yeah.
wow.
Isn't that something?
Whosever idea it was, and I mean the NHL was fully briefed. I mean the NHL knew what was going to unfold. So the officials knew, both teams knew, and certainly, as I said, I mean Sean was one of Johnny's closest friends and somebody that is. There's no way you can't be shaken to the core when you lose somebody so near and dear to you, and that is certainly his family. I mean, to see Guy and Jane and the emotions they had and everybody from the Gaudreau family. And you try to pay tribute in a way that really brings what Johnny was. And
Yeah.
I think that that's exactly what happened. So like I said, Tony, kudos.
Yeah.
Full kudos. Brilliant.
So many stories. Philip Gustafsson scores a goal, becoming the 15th goalie in NHL history to do so, which is always a cool moment when that happens in sports. And the games had everything last night, including Alexander Ovechkin picking up assist number 700. He joins a very elite group of just becoming the 6th player in NHL history to have 700 plus goals and 700 plus assists. That's pretty good company. Thank you very much. And because I'm doing the show in Montreal, it was something to see Matvei Michkov score his first 2 goals in the National Hockey League because, of course, Craig, that's where we're going to go today. And I'm going to bring you back. I'll bring you back to that 2023 NHL draft where we could take a look at the first 16 or 17 picks, which I know you probably remember from the top of your head. Actually, we're going to take a look at the top 23 picks. Why did I pick 23? Just to outline what an amazing pick Gabriel Perreault was at pick 23 for the New York Rangers. All right. But Connor Bedard 1 to Chicago, Leo Carlsson 2 to Anaheim, Adam Fantilli 3 to Columbus, Will Smith 4 to San Jose, and once again, the Montreal Canadiens had the 5th pick. The fan base wanted Matvei Michkov, but we know that at the time he had 3 years left on his contract in the KHL. There was the death of his dad that left so many unanswered questions. We heard about his character. We heard about him as a teammate. We heard some stories filtering out of attitude. Sometimes some of those are true and sometimes those are not. Anyway, whatever it was, and the Canadiens had information and they had intel, but in the end, they were either scared of making the pick, hesitant of making the pick, just didn't want to make the pick, or maybe just loved David Reinbacher that much. And they chose Reinbacher over Michkov. I know they have a career ahead of them, both, Craig. It's easy to do the show today, but the real answer will come in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. But right now, with the Montreal Canadiens so desperately needing a winger on that second line, especially in the absence of Patrick Laine and Matvei Michkov scoring 2 goals last night, it was a good time for me to bring that back on the radio this morning, and I'll bring it back to you. So, Craig, I know they have a career ahead of them, but you think the Montreal Canadiens are going to regret that pick one day?
No, I don't, because you know what? When you go up and you make a pick, and you're gonna go through the whole process of who you want to pick, who you're considering to pick. I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 100 more times. You celebrate the player you're picking, and great, the fan base. I can tell you this: the fan base doesn't know all the players. The fan base, they get all excited about Matvei Michkov, and there was every reason to be excited about Matvei Michkov. The other thing, Tony, and I got to make a full declaration here. I got to be very clear. You know what I have zero time for? It's a trigger for me. When I hear people who remain anonymous and nameless take players to task on character. You want to make your point, put your name to it. Because if you don't put your name to it, I don't have any respect for you. You want to remain anonymous and nameless, and you want to disparage young kids' character. Bottom line is, I got no respect for the people that do that. Understand, no respect. So I'm just going to say that. I don't care. Matvei Michkov was a very good player. There was no question about it. He had a 3-year contract with SKA. People weren't sure about when he was going to come over. And again, the Montreal Canadiens are loaded with prospects. Loaded at every position. Goal, defense, forward, all kinds of different types of players. And so if you're going to keep bemoaning what you don't have, go ahead. Keep bemoaning. Keep bemoaning. Keep bemoaning. We don't have this. We don't have that. The Montreal Canadiens have one of the best, if not the best, prospect pool in the entire National Hockey League. And that's without Matvei Michkov. So, again, this whole what-if game, what if we had this? What if we had that? Matvei Michkov's a good player. The Montreal Canadiens will tell you that he was a good player. They wanted something different. And they selected somebody different.
So I won't play the what-if game, but, just so I can try and get a laugh out of you, I'll play the could-have game. They could have had even a better prospect pool, I think. Well, whether they had Demidov, maybe they would have finished higher. I don't know. Like all these things that could, the bottom line is, and I'll be straightforward. I think Matvei Michkov's a terrific player. I think Demidov's a better prospect at the same age. And that's
so, and we'll, that's just what I think. That's my opinion. We'll wait and see. But when it's all said and done, you can't have every single player. And I go back and again, and you can go back in time.
Yeah,
go back in time. The great Sam Pollock.
Yeah.
Why would you draft Bob Gainey 8th overall? You might not remember. Sam Pollock said, "We feel he's going to add to our team and help us win games." Yeah, not every player is going to be a 40-goal scorer, 50-goal scorer.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got to take it all into perspective and what it means. I mean, remember when the fan base had to have Louis LeBlanc?
Yeah.
And I like Louis. I'm not trying to knock Louis. My point is the fan base doesn't know. They might know a player here and a handful of players there. They do not know the scope of players eligible for the draft. And I'm talking top 10 players. They don't know them.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. And by the way, I love what you said, because there's been a character assassination that has gone on in the last year, and it hasn't only happened to Michkov. I know you've heard it happen to other players before. And when teams don't end up taking a player or other scouts around the league, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of people that love to put information out there so that the media can take it all in and then obviously talk about it, report about it, and all that stuff. It's sad, right? Because you really can hurt a player big time by doing stuff like that. Now, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know you heard the stories as much as I did. Well, you know, the word on the street is that Michkov is like this with his teammates. Michkov's attitude is like this. Michkov's character is like that. And Michkov is not good for a dressing room. I know you heard that, Craig, right?
Well, I heard it. Like, all I want to know, put your name to it. Tony, I have a rule. When I get asked to comment about teams or players, I tell any writer that phones me, any journalist, yeah, I'll comment, but you got to use my name. Well, you know what? Like, no, we want it to be anonymous. I said, if you want to use me and you want to use my opinion, you got to use my name. People hide behind anonymity. I got no time for it. So just, if you want to come out and say, Matvei Michkov had these problems, put your name to it.
Yeah.
Put your name to it. I don't want to hear, oh, I heard on the street. Well, who did you hear it from? Because, you know, and again, it might be somebody that has massive respect. It might be somebody that doesn't have respect. Put your name to it. You know, bottom line is, it takes courage to put your name to, and I'm not sitting down saying, like, there's no courage in hiding behind anonymity.
Yeah. So what have you made of Michkov so far? 3 games into his young NHL career.
Well, when you watch the game last night and you watch him score the first goal, I mean, he's right in the guts of the action. I mean, Matvei's not hesitant to go and play in and around the net and in the hard areas. And then he scores the second goal. I mean, you just watch him open up, and he creates angles for himself and opportunities where he can take advantage of it. And that's exactly what he did on the second goal. He's an excellent offensive mind. He's an excellent offensive player. And he's going to produce in the National Hockey League. I don't think there's any question about it. But there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be, when I say growing pains, I don't use that negatively. I'm just saying, like, it's hard to be successful in the National Hockey League. And there's going to be times when you're going to be extremely excited. There's going to be times when you're going to look at Matvei and go, yeah, he's still green. He's still developing. And that's just part and parcel of where he's at. But he's a 20-year-old player. He's 20 years old. So he's a little bit older. He's a little bit more mature. He's a little bit more able to handle some of the ins and outs and ups and downs that go with being a young player in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
But again, the 2 goals last night, I've seen Matvei play. I've seen him play lots. No surprise to me that he scores those types of goals.
So I've said this before in the way that you called out everyone who basically annihilates a player's character or his attitude off the record. I'm gonna annihilate those who give professional opinions as if they watched the player play when they never have. I'm not one of those guys. Okay. So I host a couple of podcasts. I host a radio show. I'm a collaborator on TV. I don't go out to arenas to watch junior hockey games. I don't go out to prospects. I watch the World Junior Tournament every year, like probably every hockey fan. I try to watch the Holinka. I try to watch the World Championships where some of the prospects play. That's about it. What I do is I talk to a lot of scouts, a lot of independent scouts, a lot of team scouts, and based on what they have to say, I basically kind of go with what they're saying. But I don't pretend to be someone who knows scouts, prospects like the back of my hand. I don't. But I'll say this. I got excited about Michkov when I started hearing people that I respect say that, you know what, they thought he was probably the second best pure talent in the draft after Bedard. That in the last 10 years, he was one of the best pure talents that they had seen up until that point. And by nature, I like offensive players, right? That's just me. I like offensive players. I like guys that can dangle. I like guys that can score. I like guys that can produce offense. So today, though, I see that the Canadiens could use help on their second line. I see that the Canadiens could use help on their power play. And I see that Matvei Michkov no longer had to play 3 more years in the KHL. He came over after 1 year. And I definitely think they could have used the Matvei Michkov. Somebody told me earlier today, well, they didn't need him. He's not a big guy. And they already have Caulfield, who's not a big guy. And they already have Suzuki, who's 5'11". And they already have Newhook, who's 5'11", but they're both thicker. They already have Gallagher, who's 5'9". And I said, well, aren't you supposed to draft the best player available and worry about everything else later? Are you at least of that perspective, Craig, of drafting the best player available when you're picking top 5, or when you're picking top 5? Would you look at need?
Well, let me just say this. Who's the best player available? I mean, I hear that's another misnomer. Tell me who the best player available. The best player available is somebody different to everybody. Tony, I can guarantee you, top 10 lists in a draft, 32 teams all have a different top 10 list. 32 teams all have a different top 10 list.
That's
so
something.
Everybody says best player available. Who's the best player available? If it was as easy as just say best player available, somebody would make a list of best player available and you just go do, like that. I've asked this question before. In the 2007 draft, do you recall who went first overall?
The 2007 draft. Well, I remember that draft because, and I'll get to your answer in a second, that's the year the Canadiens drafted McDonough 12, and they drafted Pacioretty 24, and they drafted Subban 43. Yep. I'm going to be wrong on this one. I'm going to be wrong. Is it Tavares?
No, it's Patrick Kane.
It's sorry?
Patrick Kane.
Oh, that's the Patrick Kane draft where Taves went third. Kane went first and Taves went third. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Taves went third in 06.
Okay. Did you say? Correct. Yes, correct. Oh, that's right. You're right. Correct. Yes.
Okay. So Patrick Kane was the first overall pick. And I'm going somewhere with this.
Yes.
So if it's best player available and you're supposed to draft the best player available, who is the best player available at 2? You know how it's all turned out? It was Jamie Benn who went in the 5th round.
That's amazing.
That was who the best player available when it's all said and done. So who had Jamie Benn on their bingo card to be the best player available at 2?
Yeah, I brought up the draft in front of me right now. You're at Philadelphia, pick JVR, James Van Riemsdyk at 2.
Go look at the points. Just go look at the points. It's Kane, Benn.
That's something. Isn't that something, eh?
So I use that as an illustration about this idea about best player available.
Wow.
So teams are looking at they're looking at the draft process. And when I say the fans have a vested interest in the players, they love their team, they get going, we should draft this guy. That's all good. My point about the fans not knowing is not that they don't know who the players are, but they have information on the players. But the process that the NHL scouts go through is complete. It's thorough. And the fans cannot even come close to have. So when I say they don't know, that's what I'm referencing in that respect. So the idea of best player available. So you just said, so Tony, you're sitting there, okay? So you're Sam Pollock.
Yeah.
And he picks Bob Gainey 8th overall. He says the best player available for my team is Bob Gainey. Because Sam says we really value that type of player. That's what we want.
Yeah.
You declare that you love offense. Nothing wrong with that. So the best player available to you might be an offensive player. Matvei Michkov. It's all different. there's not one player that's the best player available unless your name is Connor McDavid or Eric Lindros or Mario Lemieux. We all know that that's very clear when that happens, right? So what all I'm saying is here, we're gonna know. Like I love this too. The other thing I love, redrafts. I don't grade a draft the day after. I don't grade a draft the year after. In 3-4 years' time, the whole planet's going to know how the draft should have unfolded.
Yeah, the Athletic already graded the 2023 draft all over again. They did it last week, by the way. They have Michkov at 4th, and they got Reinbacher at 15th.
Okay, which is fine. You know, David Reinbacher, you know, players move ahead. Some players don't progress as much as you thought. I tell this to young players all the time in the draft. I said, on the day of the draft, you got drafted exactly where you should have been drafted, because there was not one team ready to call your name before you got selected. So now your choice is to prove that, like, if you're drafted high, prove that the team was right. If you're not drafted as high as you want, prove that you should have been drafted higher. And so this whole process of the draft and then looking back, like, you're drafting 17 and 18-year-old kids. They're going to be 22 before they start to show really what their full abilities are. Yeah, I know there's some that show it earlier, but you got to give the whole group, the whole class, cohort, so to speak, opportunity to grow. Nathan MacKinnon, first overall pick, won the Rookie of the Year. And then he went through a couple of years, signed a contract after his entry level, and there's a lot of questions. Oh my God, how can they give him that contract? It wasn't until Nathan's 5th year that Nathan became the superstar that we see today. His 5th year. That was a guy that won the Rookie of the Year. And like we're gonna jump on other players that haven't even had a chance. Sorry, I don't sign up for that, and I never will.
You know, that's a great lesson that you just taught all of us, Craig, right now, because you brought up the name Bob Gainey, who was drafted 8th by Sam Pollock in 1973. He could have drafted Rick Middleton, who the Rangers drafted at 14th, and deemed that was the best player.
Yeah.
But by drafting Bob Gainey at number 8, the Canadiens had the success they had and won the Stanley Cups they did. And who knows, if they would have drafted Middleton, he probably wouldn't have been as an important piece to the puzzle to having a cup-winning team. Well, I mean, that's a great lesson, right? Because who's the best player? Like, the one that fits
Rick
into
Middleton
your puzzle,
was a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Rick Middleton was a hell of a player.
He scored over 40 goals 4 times and scored over 50 once.
He was a hell of a player. But just to your point, what teams look at where their team is at in the cycle, you know, looking and saying, okay, we want to build out our team here. How do we want to add here? What do we think this player's upside is? I have never once, ever heard a team stand up and draft a player and go, yeah, we're really not sure. Skating might not be great. You know, puck skills are off. Like, have you ever heard a team when they're drafting players that they think are going to come in and help their team be successful? And there's going to be different degrees of success and different levels of players depending on where you're drafted. And even, like, I bring up Jamie Benn, but all in all, you know, the NHL teams put so much effort and so much time into the process. And again, they have to listen to the noise. I'll tell you a funny story, and I may have told you this before. After the Canadiens drafted David Reinbacher, and I mean, there's people like, oh my God, they drafted David Reinbacher, drafted David Reinbacher. And I forget who it was that interviewed me. They asked me, it was somebody from the Montreal Canadiens media corps. And he asked me, he goes, well, you know, you only had David Reinbacher, I forget where rated, like, whatever, 18th or 17th. And I said to him, who says I was right? That's the other thing, Tony.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to fall in love with their own list and their own thing. Just because I had him 17, that doesn't mean I was right. We'll see. And then I'll be able, and then I call the scouting process is continuous. I'm watching all the time. What did I miss here? What did I like there that maybe isn't there? What hasn't developed? On and on and on. Every time I go and watch players play, it's an opportunity for me to learn and for me to add and go, okay, maybe I missed that. Or, geez, that player has more of that than I gave him credit for.
Yeah.
And that's the process.
Well, I'm going to ask you a scouting report on a player who's been in the league for 6 years, and that'll come in just a minute here.
Okay.
But the Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for cool fall days. Only 90 calories, only 2 grams of carbs, only 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and it's ultra refreshing. The Canadiens sent out a little news earlier today about Kirby Dach, who has not been overly unanimous this season. Kirby Dach will not participate in today's practice. He had a therapy day earlier today. Kirby Dach has been a topic of conversation here over the last couple of days. The Canadiens lost their last game 6-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. His line has not really got going yet with Newhook and Armia. Newhook's got a goal. That's about it. And Graham McCagg said something on the podcast a couple of weeks back. He said, I really hope that something to the effect of, I really hope that Dach is able to improve in the face-off circle, because, you know, if he's not going to win his draws, well, then the line's going to have a hard time having success. And then at one point he said, you know, I really think the Canadiens should put Christian Dvorak on that line because he's the best face-off guy that they got. And he'll be able to help a guy like Kirby Dach, be able to help a guy like Newhook. He's better. And I dug it up. I looked up all kinds of stats. Dvorak's been in the league for 9 years, and Newhook's been in the league for 5 years, and Dach's been in the league for 6 years. Mind you, he's been depleted with injuries. And Dvorak has better face-off numbers than both those guys every single season. And Newhook comes second. He's got better face-off numbers than Dach. So, Mike, the question we've had here, are we 1,000% convinced that Kirby Dach is a centerman and not a winger? We understand why they want him at centerman and at center, and why they would love him at center. He's 6'4", 220. He's a guy that was, drafted 3rd overall. A lot of people saw a number 1 centerman in him. Once again, that doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to pan out or turn out. So I'll ask you your scouting report on a player that's been in the league for 6 years, but hurt for probably about a couple. Is Kirby Dach, in your opinion, a centerman or a winger?
It's a great question, right? So, like, there's every reason when you watch Kirby play. I mean, he's got good skating ability, good puck skills. He's a smart player, and I'll get into where I feel he's at right now, and the reasons I feel he's in the spot he's in. But everything screams the middle of the ice, more room to make plays, more room to impact the game in different ways. And certainly for me, like, I think that Kirby has the attributes to be a good center. Now, to your point, we sit here and we watch and we go, okay, maybe he isn't. Sometimes despite our best hopes, maybe he is better suited to being on the wing, receiving the puck, being able to play a little bit higher in the defensive zone, not having to do some of the things that a center does, including taking face-offs. And maybe that's where he's going to have to find his way to have the most success. I do think this where he finds himself right now, and so your knee's healthy, you're fully healthy. There's a difference between rehab and conditioning. Kirby Dach has not been able to put himself in game condition form while you're rehabbing. You're rehabbing an injury. And so now he's trying to get himself back up to game pace. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do. It takes a little bit of time. And I would be patient with Kirby. Maybe you say we're not going to have him take face-offs, because to your point and to Grant's point, there's better options. Why don't we use that way, right? Which allows Kirby maybe to find his way in terms of game shape. And when I say game shape, he's in shape, but the pace, being able to come back. And so I think that Kirby's in a place right now where he's got to work on the game conditioning part. He's worked hard on the rehab, but rehab is one thing. And now medical doctors, orthopedic surgeons, and they say this, that you get an injury like Kirby had, 6 months maybe before he can start skating, but you're in the 9 to 12 month range of getting back to full health. And then you can start work on your conditioning. Kirby's at that point now where I think he can really push to do the things that he needs to do game-wise, conditioning-wise. I'd be patient with him. He's unique. He's got unique qualities, unique attributes.
That's another great lesson, Craig, because a lot of people have said over the last couple of days when Kirby's game shape has been brought up, because it's actually been questioned, right? Is this guy in good shape? He doesn't look like he's up to speed right now. And a lot of people have said, well, I would hope so. He's in game shape. I mean, he played one period last year. He had one full year to get in shape. And then you say, hold on, no. He had, close to a year to rehab the knee, in which he had a torn ACL and a torn MCL and maybe some other damage that they had to clean up there. That's not the same as actually getting in game shape and up to game pace.
It isn't. First of all, there's the mending, then there's the healing, and then there's the get the muscles and the leg back to form. It's not just the knee. Like he wasn't able to do any weight bearing stuff for a long time. It's the quads, it's everything that goes with it, which affects your conditioning and everything. Trust me, Kirby Dach's in good shape. But there's a difference between being in NHL game shape and being in good shape. And I think that Kirby now, I think you have to be patient with him. Yeah.
It's a good discussion though, because Tim Turk, who's a skills coach, as you know, has worked with Kirby Dach in the past on his shooting. And Tim Turk joined me on the Sick podcast. I'm going back now almost 14 months. It was August of 2023. And he said at the time that, for what it's worth, he saw and preferred Dach as a winger over a center. Only time will tell, but I buy what Grant is selling, and that you're not going to produce a lot of offense if you're only going to win 18.8% of your draws this year and 35% of your draws over the last 5 or 6 years. And that's a pretty big sample size. Like, okay, 6 years, he's hurt for 2, so there's 4. But that's hundreds of faceoffs taken over 4 years. That's a pretty big sample size. Dvorak's had a big sample size. I would put Dvorak on that line to take the faceoffs, maybe spot him at center every now and then, and see what it gives. Because, like, I have a question for you. How many very good second line centermen do you know that have had seasons of 19% in the dot and average on a long term 35%?
I would say that coaches don't like those numbers. And so you're not in that spot. And, you think about Christian and Christian's played well, I thought, this year for the Montreal Canadiens. And, so now you start to look at options here for Montreal. So maybe Kirby's best serve, get him on the wing, get Christian in the middle, leave Alex there, see, and then it gives, Patrick's only going to be back in a little while. And maybe this is a chance for Kapanen to move right into that third line center hole. We had talked earlier about, well, if Kapanen is showing capabilities at third line center, maybe you have to consider, what you do with Christian Dvorak. Well, Tony, you may have come up with the solution. That Christian just moves into that slot. Christian's played with good, talented players during his career. During his career, he's played with good players. So being able to play with Kirby Dach, being able to play with Alex Newhook, or if Patrick Laine comes back there, Christian can do that because he's a smart player. So maybe that's the answer that in the short term. It gives Kirby a little bit of more opportunity, like I said, to be a little bit higher in the defensive zone, get the puck on the move instead of him having to get the puck. One of the big things with winning faceoffs, and there's a lot of different ideas about faceoffs, but when you're an offensive player and you have that, and your line doesn't win the faceoff, you immediately start in chase mode. Now you're trying to chase the puck down to try to get it to do the things that fit into your skill set. So that's where starting a faceoff can help skilled players.
If you're chasing for about 25 or 30 seconds, and your shift is about 43, 44, and you got to make your way to the bench, you're not going to end up having a lot of success. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Playground. Looking for the ultimate entertainment experience? Playground has it all. Gaming, poker, fine dining, live music, DJs, all with unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground, your top destination for fun. All right, Craig, the Canadiens have a record of 2-2 after 4 games. They will host the Los Angeles Kings tomorrow. They just gave up 6 goals last game versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are not the best version of themselves. They've been a lot stronger, of course, over the last 15 or 20 years. Everyone knows that. But yet they gave up 6. So let's take a look at the defense because it's been pretty concerning. There was an article, Jonathan Bernier, earlier today in the Journal de Montréal, who brought up these stats, defensive stats for the Canadiens at 5v5. And got these stats courtesy of Sports Logic. He did. Yep. Shots they've given up from the slot. They're the worst team in the National Hockey League. Opportunities they've given up from other teams' cycles. They're the second worst team in the National Hockey League. Goals expected against. They're the 4th worst team in the National Hockey League. Their zone entries, they're 24th in the league out of 32. The battles of
zone exits.
Pardon me. Yes, correct. Thank you. Zone exits. The battles 1v1 in the defensive zone, they're 24th. The scoring chances against when other teams enter their zone, they're 23rd. The giveaways in the neutral zone, 15th. Giveaways in the defensive zone, 17. And odd man rushes given up, they're 13th in the National Hockey League. And there's other stats, which we'll get to in a minute, which show how many goals that Samuel Montembeault, like expected goals that he's actually stopping from going in. He's like among in the top of the National Hockey League. You talked about numbers before that a GM or a coach wouldn't like. When I talked to you about Kirby Dach's faceoff numbers, Craig, I don't like those defensive stats and those numbers that I just brought up here.
Well, why would you? I mean, and all you got to do is look at that far right column, 32nd, 31st, 29th, 24th. You know, coming into this season, and we've talked about where the Montreal Canadiens would find themselves. You know, last year they were in the bottom 8 teams in these categories. They were in the bottom 8 teams. So you got to move up tiers. So I look at Montreal trying to move into that next group of 8. That has to improve. Do you know what's amazing? Their penalty killing has improved massively. And penalty killing is defense, right? So how can their penalty killing be so good?
It's goaltending too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. No, you absolutely agree with the percentages and everything. But but that right there is not a recipe for success. And when I was asked about can the Canadiens make the playoffs, and I said success for them is moving into that next group of 8. That's how I saw it. 4 games in, there is no discernible progression in a really critical area for success for the Montreal Canadiens. And if they don't improve in that area, I'll be straightforward with you, Tony. If they don't improve in that area, they're going to be picking in the top 5 again.
Wow. All right. So now, speaking of which, and we're talking about their defensive stats being absolutely terrible, I want to tell you, Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. You must be 18 years old and over and play responsibly. And the reason why I bring it up is because it's now time for a sick pick. And I think I'm going to surprise a lot of people with the sick pick that I'm going to give you.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
So this is odd because for the last 3 minutes, I just finished talking about how terrible the Montreal Canadiens defensive game is. But my sick pick is going to be the Canadiens and the Los Angeles Kings, who also give up a ton of goals. Take a look at last week and last game in Ottawa. They gave up 8. I'm actually going to go under the 6.5. And the reason why I'm going to go under in the 6.5, and there's a good reason, folks, okay, is that in 9 of the last 10 games between the two teams, they've gone under 6.5. One game had 3 goals total scored. 4 games had 4 goals total scored. I think 3 games had 5 goals total scored. 1 game had 6 total goals scored, and 1 game had 7. So 9 of the last 10 games between the Canadiens and the Kings have gone under 6.5. So my sick pick on Betway is the under 6.5 between the Canadiens and the Los Angeles Kings. All right, got that out of the way.
I love your pick. And when a team has given up 8 goals, the LA Kings in Ottawa, and a team has given up 6 goals, Montreal Canadiens at home,
the coaches destroyed them the next day.
Well, not listen. The only thing the players have heard is defense, 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 and so like the players aren't even thinking offense right now. So to your point, 6.5, I'd be right with you on the under in that one.
Awesome.
It would be different if it was one team. It's both teams. And so Jim Hiller and Marty St. Louis, they have put into their players' heads, defense, baby, defense.
So I talked about Samuel Montembeault, and I was going to bring up those stats. But before I do, and look, you'd have to think that Montembeault is going to get to start tomorrow versus the Kings. But Caden Primo, in his only outing thus far after 4 games, had a tough outing. He had a really tough night in Boston. I thought he had a really tough camp as well. And now, do we have Jeff Gordon last night on Anti-Sham talking about Jakub Dobeš? Do we have that?
Is there, I think, that played well that we didn't necessarily have a spot for? I thought Dobeš played really good. It showed us what it could look like down the road.
Let's stop it right there. Okay. I thought Dobeš played really, we didn't really have a spot for, but I thought Dobeš played really well and showed us what it can be like down the road. Primo, is this the year of truth for him? Is he in trouble? And could it even last less than a year if he doesn't come into his own? He who's been in the National Hockey League now up and down for the last 5 years. He's 25 years old. He's no longer a 19, 20-year-old goaltender. Because I believe that if Primo didn't have to go through waivers, the way the Canadiens kept Kapanen in here and they kept Heineman here and made some really tough decisions, I think Dobeš would have stayed here, and I think Primo would have went down. I don't know that for a fact, obviously. Only the Canadiens know, but
yeah, they do. And I mean, you're hedging your bets. Teams around the league, they fear, they do, and they fear the waiver wire. You know, they're looking at other teams and they're looking, okay, they have an injury, maybe we'd be susceptible there. I mean, just look what happened with Jiri Patera. Jiri Patera was put on waivers by the Vancouver Canucks, and Boston, because they were still in the Swayman holdout, picked him up. So they're trying to protect them, and then they get Swayman signed, Patera right back on waivers, and back to Vancouver he goes. So teams become, especially when they've spent a lot of time working with a player, they don't just want to lose a player in that matter. And that's always going to be there. I think when Jeff says Dobeš played really well and gave them a look of what it could look like, I'm not so sure. And again, I'm not so sure that he's talking about Dobeš v. Primo as much as he's talking about a real good, steady backup goaltender that gives them steady play. Montembeault, he's the number 1 goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens. Don't forget Jacob Fowler, who I think is an A prospect for the Montreal Canadiens at Boston College. So you have Dobeš, you have Fowler, and to me, it's real simple, and it is. You want competition. You want competition throughout your organization. You want competition at positions. And if somebody's better than one guy, you have to find a way to reward that player. Now, you might not be able to do it immediately. It's not just as simple as just, okay, Dobeš stays and we put somebody on waivers. You manage that. They did it last year with the 3 goalie rotation. And then Jake Allen went to New Jersey, and they felt, but this is now up to Caden. This now falls on Caden to show that he's deserving of having that spot. I don't think anybody would say that he's earned the spot. He's got the spot now as a previous play and a belief in him. As you move forward, He's going to have to show that he deserves that spot. And for Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, Marty St. Louis, I think these aren't problems. These are parts of solutions to get your team really good and strong.
Okay. The Samuel Montembeault stats are brought to you in part by Fruiterie Dillard, a family-run business. Hello to Tasso and staff, a mainstay in the LaSalle community, which is my hood since 1995. Proud to continue offering the same fresh foods and flavors they have for the past 30 years, from fresh fruits and produce delivered daily to an ever-expanding assortment of deli meats, cheeses, and sandwiches. You'll find personalized service and friendly faces that make you feel like family every time I walk in. And I say, half a pound of mortadella San Daniele, half a pound of Capicol Fontina Dolce, half a pound of prosciutto Parma. Craig Button, if you would eat with me and go grocery shopping with me in a week, I'm telling you, he would look like me. So you're better off.
So you take that whole order and then you just say between two slices of bread and away you go.
There we go.
A little bit of cheese. Let me say this about Samuel Montembeault. I don't know if you're going to ask.
I was going to bring up his stats.
Okay,
but I'll just bring them up and then please, yes, you could talk as we speak. So here we are. Goals saved in the National Hockey League, right? Connor Hellebuck's at number 1 at 4.75 goals saved. Samuel Montembeault at 3.89, Ottinger at 344, Jake Allen 279, and Vasilevsky at 257. And Montembeault's 3 starts, his number of goals saved per game, 341 versus Toronto, 3-41, 2-19 versus Ottawa, and it was in the negatives versus Pittsburgh. Of course, it wasn't his best outing, but those are really good numbers.
Yes, and and I know we're only in the middle of October. Season's only a week old, but I'm looking ahead to the Four Nations face-off, and I am going to give lots of love to Mike Johnson, because Mike Johnson last spring said Samuel Montembeault should be right in consideration for Team Canada in the goaltender department. I'm going to jump on the Mike Johnson bandwagon. He won a world championship in 2023 for Canada. He was outstanding. He's showing again that he's outstanding. If I was the coach, if I was John Cooper right now, and I was playing my first game in the Four Nations face-off tomorrow, Samuel Montembeault would be my starting goalie.
You know what? It's hard to disagree with you. And with all due respect to Montembeault, of course, who definitely has earned it. It all coincides and it comes at a time where Canada is probably the thinnest that they've been at the goaltending position in a long, long time, right? There is no Marty Brodeur. There's no Patrick Roy. There's no Roberto Luongo. There's no Marc-Andre Fleury in his prime. Binnington is still there. He's had he's played better hockey in the past.
Don't forget about Carey Price, Tony.
Yeah, there's no Carey Price. You're right. Like it's and you know what? You could tell that he can smell it. He can feel it. And he's really coming on. And one of the things I heard too is that he did a lot of work on his mental game. I don't know exactly what are some of the methods or some of the exercises that he did, but tried to work on the mental part of the game a lot in the off season. Because of course it's has a lot to do with it, right? Not only the physical but the mental. But
yeah, let me add something to that.
Yeah,
there was a study just done, a study over a number of years about tennis players, and they said the difference between the top 5 tennis players in the world and the next 20, which are the top 25 players in the world. So the top 5 and the next 20 is all about how you get prepared for your next play, your next shot. You're like, if you make a mistake, if you hit it into the net, it's how you put that behind you and get on. And in the study, they said that the top 5 are able to get on to the next point right away. I think it's the same thing for a pitcher. I think it's the same thing for a quarterback. I think it's the same thing for a goaltender. A puck is going to go by you. Pitchers are going to give up a home run. Quarterbacks are going to miss a receiver or throw an interception. It happens. You learn from it, but then you got to get on to the next play. And I think a big part of the mental aspect for a goaltender, in this case Samuel Montembeault, is just understanding, okay, I should have had that one. I got to get to the next play. I can't be dwelling on that behind me and let that impact my next shot against. And the one that, okay, I couldn't do anything about it. Let's go on. A lot of goaltenders beat themselves up unnecessarily. And I think Jamie McLennan is the one that told me, he goes, the biggest thing that he always tried to impress when he was a goaltender coach on the goaltenders was either there was nothing you could do on the goal, there was something you could have done a little bit better, or you should have had it. And he goes, you got to be able to delineate between those three and then understand what it means, but then get playing on to the next, like right away. And the good ones do that.
I got something for you, Craig, but not before I talk to you about Secure with a K. Fall is the perfect time to start a new job. Unlock your potential with Secure Payment Experts. Secure is the highest paying English-speaking call center in the Montreal area. That's right. The job is English only, no French required, which we know is next to impossible to find here in Montreal. They're always growing the team, and with 2 great locations, downtown Montreal and on the West Island, Secure offers a fun and unique culture with great earning potential. I got a personal story, if you don't mind, that I can tell you.
Oh, go right ahead.
As you know, my son plays professional soccer in Gibraltar, and he's a striker. And one of the things that he's had to work on over the last couple of years is that he's either hot or he's cold. He'll have games where he can score 3, and he'll have games where he should have scored 3 and he missed 5. And one of the things that they've been working on with him, and his team has done a great job, and he's done a really good job as well this year, has been, what they noticed was the mental part of the game, that when he missed a scoring chance, he had a hard time shaking it off. And it affected the rest of his game. And instead of thinking about the next time he was going to get with the ball and make sure that he did good by it, he couldn't forget the goal that he missed. And they've been working on that with him and doing a lot of mental exercises, and he has improved incredibly. So when you just talked about that exercise with tennis players, that branches out, and you talked about quarterbacks in football, I can tell you that it branches out to even goal scorers in soccer.
Oh, for sure it does. Yeah. I mean, Ray Ferraro has said this, and I mean, Ray was in the top 100 goal scorers of all time. A couple have passed him now, and I think he's like 104th now at 408 goals. And Ray always said, he goes, when I was scoring, I never thought that, I thought I would continue to score. And he goes, and when I wasn't scoring, he goes, I never thought I'd score again. And so to deal with that, right, and to deal with, and it applies right through. And nobody, I always say this, Tony, nobody tries to make a mistake. Your son isn't trying to miss his opportunity to score. So take it, understand, back to Jamie McLennan, what can I do better to make sure I don't miss the next time? And sometimes, I remember having this conversation with Jerome McGinley. He scored 600 plus goals in his career. It's not like he struggled, but like, you go through stretches. And so I walked him, I said, what do you got to do to score a goal? And I said, back it all the way up. Okay, you got to get in position. You got to get a puck. You got to give it to you in the right spot. You got to get it off your stick quick, blah, 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 blah. And I said, so once it leaves your stick, you have no more control over it. You've done everything right. It could get blocked. It could hit a stick. It could hit a post. The goaltender could make a really good save. I said, I can guarantee you, Jerome, if you don't do the first part of that before the puck leaves your stick, you'll never score again. But because you've been such a brilliant goal scorer, you just keep doing it. There's going to be times when you've done everything right, but once it leaves your stick, it's out of your control. And that's your son. Once it leaves his boot, there's a lot of things that can happen. And you learn and you accept them and everything that goes with it. I have never, ever seen a player try to make a mistake in sport. Like this idea, it was a mistake. You weren't trying to make a mistake. Do you think last night the pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians was trying to throw that ball to Aaron Judge that he hit right out of the park? No. But you know what happens after Aaron Judge hits that ball? Somebody throws the pitcher a new ball, and he's got to stand on that mound and make that next pitch. And if you're dwelling on what just happened, you're in trouble.
So much from Craig Button today. He really hates it when people in hockey circles put out stories on players' attitude or their character and they don't put their name to it. Love your pick. Love your pick. From the second you pick your pick, love your pick. And it doesn't matter who you pick. At the end of the day, that player could end up being a very important part of the puzzle. The best player in the draft, who's the best player available, is the player that you end up picking or the player that could probably help your team win the most games at the current time that you're in. He's got Samuel Montembeault. If the Four Nations Cup game 1 is tomorrow, starting that game, man, we got a lot. I'll finish it with this. Once again, it was awesome spending time with you in Montreal when we did, and I hope your niece had a lovely wedding. And we spent some time at Souvlaki Authentique, and you had some real nice things to say about a couple of your former players, now members of the Montreal media, Denis Gauthier and Steve Bégin. And I'll share this story with you. I was on the phone with Denis Gauthier last week, and I said, Craig Button sends his regards and says, he really likes you, by the way, Denny. He really, really likes you. And I could hear this whole big sigh of relief, like, oh, yeah. And I said, do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
And I said to him, Denny, what's wrong? He said, I'm so glad to hear that he likes me because one day we were going to play a trick and throw him in the pool. And the other guys backed out at the last second. And I ended up throwing him in the pool. And he says, I don't think he ever forgave me for that. So I'm so happy to hear that he likes me. I said, no, he likes you, Denny. He likes you.
I forgot about that the minute it happened with Denis Gauthier. Denis Gauthier, again, and his lovely wife, Stephanie. I mean, just unbelievable people. So, you know what? Like, I'm glad Denis, I guess I got to tell him how much I respect him, how much I love him. I mean, he was a player that you wanted on your team and as a person, and now what he's doing in the media, I think it's fantastic. And I got to tell you, I love his son, Ethan, too, who is
amazing. Yeah.
I think he's got a really bright career ahead of him, but good family, good people. Him and Steph are great people. No surprise. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree with their children.
Amazing. Hey, so do hockey players do that stuff? Do they try and throw the GM in the pool or something like that?
I think that Denny got goaded into it by the president, and Denny got himself caught in a spot. And you know, at the end of no, they don't do that. And at the end of the day, you know what? It's one of those things that happen, and you know, you come out of the pool, you're wet when you come out of a pool when you've been thrown into it. But you know, as Denny was a player that I had immense respect for, and that respect hasn't diminished one bit.
Fantastic. He loves you, Craig. He really does. All right, and so do I, and so does everyone watching. Craig, amazing stuff once again. What a podcast! So much knowledge. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
All right, there you have it. Craig Button, Director of Scouting with TSN and hockey analyst, of course. Marinaro, a shout-out to Paul Montreal. There you have it. Poisted Sick Medical. They have 2 locations, downtown Montreal and the West Island. And Dr. Michkov and his team, they use the latest cosmetic technologies for laser services, injections, fillers, body contouring, facial treatments. Check out Paul Montreal on Instagram. At Paul Montreal, call 514-989-7328. Special thanks to all of you for watching. If you like the comment, sick, share it with your friends. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Reviews. It's our way of feeling the love. We'll be back tomorrow night. Same time, same place, after the Canadiens and the Los Angeles Kings. My guest tomorrow night will be Pierre Maguire. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Tibi, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.